In the heart of New York City, where skyscrapers kissed the clouds and streets buzzed with life, a young girl named Amara lived a life most people couldn't imagine. She was only 16, but her eyes carried the weight of someone much older. Her skin was dark, her hair tied back into messy braids, and her clothes were worn-out hand-me-downs that barely shielded her from the biting cold. Every day was a battle for survival, yet she held on to one thing: her dignity. Amara had been homeless for 2 years. It wasn't always like this. Once upon a time, she had a home, a mother who loved her, and dreams of becoming an artist. But when her mother passed away suddenly, everything changed. With no family to turn to and no money to support herself, Amara found herself alone in a city that never seemed to slow down. The world moved around her as if she didn't exist, but she refused to let it break her spirit. On this particular evening, the air was unusually chilly, even for November. Amara sat huddled under a thin blanket near Central Park, trying to stay warm. People walked past her, some throwing coins into her makeshift cup, while others ignored her completely. She didn't blame them. She knew how easy it was to look away from someone like her. Still, she tried to smile whenever someone showed kindness, holding on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, things would get better someday. As the sun dipped, below the horizon casting long shadows across the pavement, Amara noticed something shiny lying a few feet away. At first she thought it might be trash, an empty soda can or a crumpled piece of foil, but curiosity got the better of her. Dragging herself up, she shuffled over to investigate. To her surprise, it was a wallet, a sleek, expensive-looking leather wallet that gleamed faintly in the fading light. Her heart raced as she picked it up. For a moment, she considered keeping it. After all, she needed money more than anyone else did. Food, shelter, warmth. These were luxuries she hadn't experienced in ages. But then she opened it, and what she saw made her pause. Inside were stacks of $100 bills, neatly arranged like rows of miniature treasures. There were also credit cards, business cards, and an ID belonging to none other than Marcus Langston, one of the richest men in the country. Amara's breath caught in her throat. Marcus Langston? The billionaire tech mogul whose face was plastered across magazines and billboards? The man who owned half the buildings in Manhattan? She stared at his picture on the ID, feeling a mix of awe and disbelief. How could someone so wealthy lose something so valuable? For a long time she stood there clutching the wallet tightly. Her mind raced with possibilities. She could keep it, disappear into the night, and use the money to change her life. No one would ever know. It wasn't like anyone cared about her anyway. Or she could return it, knowing that doing the right thing wouldn't earn her anything except perhaps a fleeting moment of gratitude. The decision weighed heavily on her shoulders. Amara had learned the hard way that the world wasn't kind to people like her. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford, and hope often led to disappointment. Yet deep down she believed in fairness, even if the universe rarely agreed with her. Returning the wallet felt like the only choice she could live with. With trembling hands, she tucked the wallet into her coat pocket and began walking toward the address listed on Marcus's driver's license. It was a tall, glass-covered skyscraper, downtown, its lights glowing brightly against the darkening sky. As she approached, she felt out of place among the polished businessmen and women stepping out of limousines and luxury cars. Security guards eyed her suspiciously, their expressions making it clear they thought she didn't belong there. But Amara didn't back down. Summoning every ounce of courage she had, she approached the front desk and explained her situation. "I found this wallet," she said softly, pulling it out of her pocket. "It belongs to Mr. Langston. Can you tell him I'm here?" The receptionist raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked curtly. "No," Amara replied, shaking her head, "but I think he'd want to know about this." After a brief phone call, the receptionist nodded reluctantly. "Mr. Langston will see you upstairs," she said, pointing toward the elevator. Amara's stomach churned as she stepped inside. She had never been in such a fancy building before, let alone met someone as powerful as Marcus Langston. What would he say when he saw her? Would he accuse her of stealing? Or worse, would he laugh in her face? When the elevator doors opened, she found herself in a lavish penthouse suite overlooking the entire city. The room was filled with modern art, plush furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased breathtaking views of the skyline. In the center of it all stood Marcus Langston himself, a tall, imposing figure dressed in a tailored suit. His sharp features softened slightly as he took in Amara's appearance. "You're the one who found my wallet?" he asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Amara nodded, holding it out to him. "Yes, sir, I thought you'd miss it." Marcus studied her for a moment, his gaze lingering on her tattered clothes and weary expression. Then, without another word, he took the wallet and flipped through its contents. When he realized nothing was missing, his eyes widened in astonishment. "I don't understand," he murmured almost to himself. "Why didn't you keep it? You could have used the money." Amara shrugged, avoiding his gaze. "It's not mine," she said simply. "Besides, I figured someone like you probably has enough problems without losing your wallet, too." Her response caught Marcus off guard. He chuckled softly, shaking his head in admiration. "You're quite remarkable, you know that?" Amara didn't respond. She shifted uncomfortably, unsure of what to say next. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. "Is there anything I can do for you? A reward, perhaps?" She hesitated, tempted by the offer but unwilling to accept charity. "No, thank you," she said firmly. "I just wanted to do the right thing." Marcus nodded, respecting her decision. But as Amara turned to leave, he called after her. "Wait," he said. "What's your name?" "Amara," she replied, glancing over her shoulder. "Well, Amara," Marcus said with a thoughtful smile, "you've given me something to think about tonight, thank you." As she stepped back into the elevator, Amara couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened. Little did she know, this chance encounter would set off a chain of events that would change both their lives forever. The elevator ride down felt surreal to Amara. Her reflection in the shiny metal doors told a story she wasn't sure she believed herself. Her tired eyes, the frayed edges of her coat, and the faint smudge of dirt on her cheek all screamed, "Homeless girl." Yet here she was, leaving a billionaire's penthouse after returning his wallet without asking for anything in return. It felt strange, almost dreamlike, as though she had stepped into someone else's life for a moment. When she stepped out, onto the street again, the cold air hit her like a slap. Reality came rushing back. She was still homeless, still hungry, and still alone. But something inside her stirred, a tiny flicker of hope that hadn't been there before. For once, she didn't feel invisible. Marcus Langston had looked at her, really looked at her and seen her for who she was. Not just a homeless girl, but a person with integrity, someone worth acknowledging. Unbeknownst to Amara, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about her either. As he sat in his penthouse overlooking the glittering cityscape, his mind kept replaying their brief encounter. He had met countless people throughout his life, business partners, celebrities, politicians, but none of them had left an impression quite like hers. Here was a young girl living on the streets, surrounded by poverty and despair. Yet she had chosen honesty over self-interest. It baffled him, intrigued him, and even made him question his own values. Marcus grew up poor, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs just to put food on the table. He remembered what it was like to go to bed hungry, to wear shoes with holes in the soles, to dream of a better future while feeling trapped by circumstances. But those memories were distant now, buried under layers of wealth, success, and privilege. Over time, he had become numb to the struggles of others, focusing solely on expanding his empire. Meeting Amara reminded him of where he came from, and perhaps more importantly of the kind of person he used to be. That night, unable to shake off the image of Amara standing nervously in his penthouse, Marcus decided to learn more about her. He called his trusted assistant, Emily, and asked her to discreetly gather information. "Find out everything you can about her," he instructed. "Where does she live? Who is she? What's her story?" Emily hesitated. "Are you sure about this, Mr. Langston? I mean, isn't it possible she's just trying to scam you?" "Marcus, shook his head firmly. No, I don't think so. There's something genuine about her. Something real. Over the next few days, Emily dug into Amara's background. What she uncovered shocked Marcus. Amara had been living on the street since her mother passed away 2 years ago. Before that, they had lived in a small apartment in Brooklyn, struggling to make ends meet. Amara's mother worked long hours as a janitor, doing everything she could to provide for her daughter. When she died unexpectedly, Amara lost not only her home but also her anchor. With no family to turn to and no money to support herself, she ended up on the streets, fending for herself in a world that showed little mercy. As Marcus read through the report, his chest tightened. He couldn't help but see parallels between Amara's life and his own childhood. The loss, the struggle, the loneliness, it was all painfully familiar. And yet, despite her hardships, Amara had managed to hold on to her humanity, choosing kindness when most would have given up. It was a quality he admired deeply, one he realized he had lost somewhere along the way. Determined to do something meaningful, Marcus decided to reach out to Amara again. This time, however, he wanted to do it personally. He tracked her down near Central Park, where she often spent her days. When she saw him approaching, her eyes widened in surprise. "Mr. Langston," she said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "Amara," he greeted her warmly, offering a small smile. "Do you have a moment? I'd like to talk." She nodded, cautiously, unsure of what to expect. Together they walked to a nearby cafe, a cozy little place tucked away from the chaos of the city. Inside, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and soft jazz music played in the background. Amara glanced around nervously, clearly uncomfortable in such an upscale setting. Sensing her unease, Marcus reassured her. "Don't worry," he said gently. "We're just having a conversation." Once they were seated, Marcus got straight to the point. "I've been thinking about our meeting the other day," he began. "You struck me as someone special, someone with a lot of potential. I'd like to help you if you'll let me." Amara blinked, caught off guard. "Help me?" she repeated, her tone skeptical. "Why would you want to do that?" Marcus leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Because I believe in second chances. Because I know what it's like to grow up without opportunities. And because—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Because I think you deserve better than what life has handed you so far." For a moment, Amara didn't respond. She stared at him, her mind racing. Was this some kind of trick? A test? Or was he genuinely offering her a lifeline? Finally she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "What exactly are you proposing?" Marcus explained his plan. He wanted to provide her with temporary housing, enroll her in school, and hire tutors to help her catch up academically. He assured her that there were no strings attached, no hidden agendas. All he asked was that she give herself a chance to succeed. Amara listened intently, her heart pounding. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately, to grab onto this opportunity, with both hands and never let go. But another part of her hesitated. Trust didn't come easily to her, especially when it came to people with power and money. She had learned the hard way that promises often turned out to be empty, and kindness usually came with a price. "I appreciate the offer," she said slowly, choosing her words carefully. "But why are you doing this? You barely know me." Marcus smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "Let's just say I see a bit of myself in you. And maybe helping you will remind me of the person I used to be." His honesty disarmed her. For the first time in years, Amara allowed herself to imagine a different future, one where she wasn't defined by her circumstances, where she had a chance to rebuild her life. Still, she knew it wouldn't be easy. Accepting Marcus's help meant stepping into unknown territory, facing challenges she couldn't even begin to anticipate. After a long silence, she finally nodded. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll try." Relief washed over Marcus's face. "Good," he replied, his voice filled with quiet determination. "This is just the beginning, Amara. Together, We'll figure things out. As they left the cafe, the city buzzed around them, oblivious to the monumental decision that had just been made. Neither Amara nor Marcus fully understood the impact this moment would have on their lives, but one thing was certain. Their paths were now intertwined, bound together by a shared belief in the possibility of change. Little did they know, this was only the start of a journey that would challenge them, transform them, and ultimately redefine what they thought was possible, not just for themselves but for each other. Amara's new life began with a whirlwind of changes, each one bringing its own mix of excitement and uncertainty. Marcus wasted no time putting his plan into action. Within days, he arranged for her to move into a small but cozy apartment in a quiet neighborhood, a far cry from the cold streets she had called home for so long. The apartment was modest with freshly painted walls, soft lighting, and basic furniture. But to Amara, it felt like a palace. For the first time in years, she had a roof over her head, a bed to sleep in, and a door she could lock behind her. At first, Amara struggled to adjust. Everything about this new environment felt foreign. The cleanliness, the silence, the absence of constant danger. She found herself pacing the floors at night, unable to shake the feeling that something was bound to go wrong. But as the days passed, the initial discomfort gave way to a sense of security she hadn't known existed. Slowly, she began unpacking not just her few belongings but also the pieces of herself she had buried under layers of survival instincts. Marcus didn't stop there. True to his word, he enrolled Amara in a local high school and hired private tutors to help her catch up academically. Education had always been important to Amara, even when she lived on the streets. She often spent hours reading discarded books or listening to educational podcasts on borrowed phones. Now, she finally had access to proper resources and guidance. Her teachers were initially skeptical, unsure how someone who had missed so much schooling could possibly keep up. But Amara proved them wrong. She poured every ounce of energy into her studies, determined to make the most of this second chance. Despite her progress, Amara couldn't ignore the whispers that followed her wherever she went. At school, some students mocked her for being Marcus Langston's charity project. They teased her clothes, which were still hand-me-downs despite Marcus's efforts to buy her new ones, and questioned whether she truly belonged in their classes. Even among adults, there were murmurs of doubt. Some of Marcus's business associates openly criticized his decision, accusing him of using Amara for publicity or wasting his money on someone they deemed unworthy. The criticism stung, but what hurt more was the lingering voice inside Amara's head, the one that echoed those doubts back at her. No matter how hard she worked or how much she achieved, she couldn't shake the fear that she didn't deserve any of this, that sooner or later, Marcus would realize his mistake and send her back to the streets. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at school, Amara sat alone in her apartment staring blankly at her textbooks. Tears streamed down her face as she replayed the cruel comments she'd heard earlier. "Why bother?" she muttered to herself. "They're right. I don't belong here." Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. "Dinner at 7? Let me know if you're free." Amara hesitated. Part of her wanted to decline, to retreat further into her shell and wallow in self-pity. But another part of her craved connection, however fleeting. Reluctantly, she replied, "Okay." The restaurant Marcus chose was elegant yet understated, with warm lighting and soft music playing in the background. As they sat across from each other, sipping glasses of sparkling water, Marcus studied Amara carefully. He noticed the dark circles under her eyes, the tension in her shoulders, and the way she picked at her food instead of eating it. "You seem different tonight," he said gently. "Is everything okay?" Amara shrugged, avoiding his gaze. "It's nothing, just school stuff." Marcus leaned forward, his expression serious. "Tell me." For a moment she considered brushing him off with a vague response. But something about his tone, earnest, patient, almost fatherly, made her drop her guard. Haltingly, she began sharing her struggles. The bullying, the judgment, the overwhelming pressure to prove herself. By the time she finished, tears were streaming down her face again. Instead of offering empty reassurances, Marcus listened intently, nodding occasionally to show he understood. When she was done, he took a deep breath before speaking. "Let me tell you something, Amara. When I started my company, people laughed at me. They said I was crazy, that I'd never succeed. Even after I made my first $1 million, they whispered behind my back, calling me lucky or a fluke. Do you know why I'm telling you this?" She shook her head, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "Because everyone faces doubts. At least, everyone who tries to do something meaningful. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is simple. They refuse to let those doubts define them. You've already shown incredible strength by surviving everything life has thrown at you. Don't let anyone, including yourself, convince you that you're not enough." His words hit her like a wave, washing away some of the heaviness weighing her down. For the first time, she realized that Marcus wasn't helping her out of pity or obligation. He genuinely believed in her potential, saw qualities in her that she herself hadn't fully recognized, and perhaps, just perhaps, she could start believing in herself too. Over the next few weeks, Amara threw herself into her new life with renewed determination. She attended tutoring sessions religiously, stayed late at school to ask teachers for extra help, and even joined an art club where she discovered a passion for painting. Meanwhile, Marcus continued to support her, not just financially but emotionally. He checked in regularly, celebrated her victories, and offered advice when she faced setbacks. Their bond grew stronger, evolving into something neither of them had expected, a mentorship rooted in mutual respect and trust. But while Amara thrived in many ways, challenges remained. Adjusting to a world of privilege wasn't easy, especially when reminders of her past continued to surface. One afternoon, as she walked through the upscale shopping district near her school, she spotted a familiar figure rummaging through a trash can. It was another homeless teenager, his face gaunt and his clothes tattered. For a moment their eyes met, and Amara froze. Memories flooded back, the hunger, the cold, the constant fear, and she felt a pang of guilt for leaving that life behind. That night she confided in Marcus during one of their regular dinners. "I feel like I abandoned them," she admitted, her voice trembling. "All the people still out there struggling. What makes me so special that I get to leave while they stay behind?" Marcus sighed, understanding the weight of her emotions. "You didn't abandon anyone, Amara. Surviving doesn't mean forgetting. If anything, your journey gives you a unique perspective, one that can inspire others to believe change is possible." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "You've been given an opportunity. Use it wisely. And when you're ready, find a way to give back. Not because you owe anyone, but because you care." Amara nodded slowly, absorbing his advice. She didn't have all the answers yet, but she knew one thing for certain. Her story wasn't just about escaping hardship. It was about finding purpose, about using her experiences to make a difference, not just for herself, but for others like her. As the months passed, Amara began to dream bigger than she ever had before. She envisioned a future where she could combine her love for art with her desire to help marginalized communities. Maybe she'd open a center for homeless youth, offering them resources and opportunities. Or maybe she'd create art that told their stories, shedding light on the injustices they faced daily. Whatever path she chose, she knew Marcus would be there to guide her, cheering her on every step of the way. Amara's transformation over the next year was nothing short of remarkable. She had gone from a homeless teenager struggling to survive on the streets to a determined young woman with dreams bigger than she ever thought possible. Her grades improved dramatically, and her teachers began praising her for her creativity, resilience, and work ethic. The art club became her sanctuary, a place where she could express herself freely through colors and brushstrokes. Her paintings told stories, raw, honest, and deeply personal, that resonated with everyone who saw them. But despite her progress, Amara still faced challenges. Adjusting to a life of privilege wasn't easy, especially when it came with expectations and scrutiny. Some of Marcus's associates continued to question his decision to help her, whispering behind closed doors that she was nothing more than a charity case. Others doubted whether someone like her, someone who had grown up in poverty, could truly adapt to their world. These comments reached Amara eventually, fueling her insecurities and making her wonder if she'd ever truly belong. One day, during a charity gala hosted by Marcus at his penthouse, Amara found herself surrounded by people dressed in designer gowns and tailored suits. She wore a simple yet elegant dress Marcus had bought for her, but she felt out of place nonetheless. The guests mingled effortlessly, laughing and chatting about topics she didn't understand: stock markets, luxury vacations, high-end art auctions. Every time someone approached her, she braced herself for judgment, waiting for the inevitable moment when they would realize she didn't fit in. To her surprise, however, most people were kind. A few even complimented her artwork, which Marcus had proudly displayed in one corner of the room. "You're incredibly talented," one woman said, admiring a painting of a cityscape at sunset. "This piece speaks volumes." Amara smiled, nervously unsure how to respond. "Thank you," she managed to say. "It means a lot." As the evening wore on, Marcus noticed her discomfort and pulled her aside. "How are you holding up?" he asked softly. "I'm fine," she replied quickly, though her tone betrayed her unease. "Just overwhelmed, I guess." Marcus nodded, knowingly. "I know this world can feel alienating sometimes, but remember, you don't have to prove yourself to anyone here. You're exactly where you're supposed to be." His words comforted her, but deep down, Amara couldn't shake the feeling that she was living on borrowed time. What if Marcus grew tired of helping her? What if she failed him, or worse, disappointed herself? The fear lingered in the back of her mind, a constant reminder of how fragile her new life felt. Despite these doubts, Amara refused to give up. She threw herself into her studies and her art, determined to carve out a future she could call her own. By the end of the school year, she graduated with honors, earning a scholarship to attend a prestigious university. It was a monumental achievement, one that filled her with pride, but also left her questioning whether she deserved it. The night before she left for college, Marcus invited her to dinner at his penthouse. The apartment was quieter than usual, lit only by the soft glow of table lamps. As they sat across from each other, Marcus looked at her with an expression she hadn't seen before, a mix of pride, admiration, and something else she couldn't quite place. "You've come so far, Amara," he said, breaking the silence. "I want you to know how proud I am of you." Amara blushed, embarrassed by the compliment. "I couldn't have done it without your help." Marcus shook his head, firmly. "No, don't say that. Yes, I provided resources, but you did the hard work. You faced challenges head-on, pushed through self-doubt, and proved everyone wrong, including yourself." His words brought tears to her eyes. For so long she had carried the weight of her past, convinced it defined her. But now, sitting across from Marcus, she realized she had begun to shed that burden. She wasn't just the girl who survived the streets. She was someone capable of greatness. After a pause, Marcus leaned forward, his voice serious. "There's something I need to tell you, Amara. Something important." Her heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" He hesitated, as if weighing his words carefully. "When I first met you, I thought I was helping you because it was the right thing to do. And maybe part of me wanted to ease my conscience, to remind myself of where I came from. But over time I realized something. I needed you as much as you needed me." Amara frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Success changes people, Amara. It makes them forget what really matters. Before I met you, I had become jaded, disconnected from the struggles of everyday people. You reminded me of my roots, of the values I once held dear. You showed me that kindness and integrity still exist in this world, even in the darkest corners." Tears welled up in Amara's eyes as she listened. She had never considered the impact she might have had on him. To her, Marcus had always been the strong one, the anchor keeping her grounded. Hearing him admit vulnerability touched her deeply. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "For everything." Marcus smiled warmly. "No thank you, Amara. You've changed my life in ways I never expected." As Amara prepared to leave for college, she reflected on everything that had happened since returning Marcus's wallet. Life had thrown her curveballs, forcing her to grow in ways she never imagined. Yet, through it all, she had discovered a strength within herself she didn't know existed. She had also formed a bond with Marcus that went beyond mentorship. It was a friendship built on mutual respect, trust, and shared humanity. On her first day at university, Amara walked onto campus with a newfound confidence. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would still be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But she also knew she wasn't alone. Marcus believed in her, and more importantly, she believed in herself. During her freshman year, Amara immersed herself in her studies while continuing to paint. Her artwork gained recognition not just locally, but nationally, catching the attention of galleries and collectors. One of her pieces, a powerful depiction of homelessness titled Invisible Lives, was featured in a major exhibition. Critics praised its raw emotion and social commentary, calling it a masterpiece that forces viewers to confront uncomfortable truths. Meanwhile, Marcus remained a steady presence in her life, offering guidance whenever she needed it. He attended her exhibitions, celebrated her successes, and encouraged her to pursue her dreams fearlessly. Their relationship had evolved into something rare and beautiful, a partnership rooted in empathy, understanding, and a shared commitment to making a difference. By the time Amara graduated from university, she had already launched a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping homeless youth. Inspired by her own journey, she created programs that provided education, housing, and mentorship to teenagers in similar situations. The organization quickly gained traction, attracting donors and volunteers eager to support her mission. Through it all, Amara never forgot where she came from, or the man who had given her a second chance. At every milestone, she thanked Marcus publicly, crediting him for believing in her when no one else did. But Marcus always deflected the praise, insisting that Amara's success was entirely her own. "You did this, Amara," he would say, "not me." And perhaps he was right. While Marcus had provided opportunities, Amara had seized them with courage and determination. Together they had proven that kindness, integrity, and belief in others could spark extraordinary transformations. But little did either of them know, their story was far from over. In the years to come, they would face trials that would test their bond and redefine their purpose. And in doing so, they would uncover truths about themselves and each other that neither could have anticipated. Amara's nonprofit organization, Rising Roots, quickly became a beacon of hope for homeless youth across the city. The programs she designed, ranging from educational workshops to art therapy sessions, were tailored to address not just the immediate needs of survival, but also the emotional scars that came with living on the streets. Her approach was deeply personal. She drew from her own experiences, ensuring that every aspect of the organization reflected empathy and understanding. But running a nonprofit wasn't easy. It required more than passion. It demanded resilience, patience, and an ability to navigate challenges that often felt insurmountable. Funding was inconsistent, relying heavily on donations and grants that weren't always guaranteed. Staff members worked tirelessly, juggling multiple roles because resources were stretched thin. And then there were the critics, those who questioned whether someone like Amara, who had grown up in poverty, could effectively lead such a large-scale initiative. The skepticism stung, especially when it came from people within her own community. Some accused her of selling out, claiming she had forgotten her roots now that she was working alongside wealthy donors and corporate sponsors. Others dismissed her efforts as performative, arguing that no amount of charity could solve systemic issues like homelessness and inequality. These accusations weighed heavily on Amara, making her question whether she was doing enough, or worse, whether she was doing the right thing at all. One particularly difficult day, after a tense meeting with potential investors who doubted her leadership abilities, Amara found herself sitting alone in her office. The walls were covered with artwork created by the teens in her program, vivid paintings and sketches that told stories of pain, hope, and resilience. Normally, these pieces inspired her, filling her with purpose. But today, they only reminded her of how far she still had to go. Her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was Marcus. He had been traveling for work and hadn't seen her in weeks. "How's everything going?" he asked when she answered. Amara hesitated, unsure how much to share. "It's fine," she said finally, her tone betraying her uncertainty. Marcus didn't miss it. "You don't sound fine. What's wrong?" She sighed, leaning back in her chair. "I don't know, Marcus. Sometimes I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle. No matter what I do, it never feels like enough. People keep questioning me, doubting me, and honestly, sometimes I start to doubt myself too." There was a pause on the other end of the line before Marcus spoke again. "Do you remember why you started this organization?" "Of course I do," Amara replied immediately. "To help kids like me, to give them a chance I almost didn't get." "And are you doing that?" Marcus pressed gently. "Are you making a difference, even if it's small?" Amara thought about the teenagers who came to her programs every week, their laughter during art classes, their quiet determination, during tutoring sessions, the way their eyes lit up when they realized someone believed in them. "Yes," she admitted softly. "I think so." "Then don't let anyone take that away from you," Marcus said firmly. "Criticism comes with the territory, Amara. You're challenging the status quo and people don't like change. But you've already proven yourself over and over again. Trust your instincts. Keep moving forward." His words gave her strength, reminding her of why she had started this journey in the first place. She wasn't doing this for validation or approval. She was doing it because she knew firsthand how life-changing compassion and opportunity could be. Despite moments of self-doubt, Amara refused to give up. Over time, Rising Roots began gaining traction. A viral social media campaign showcasing the stories of participants brought national attention to the organization. Donations poured in, allowing Amara to expand her programs and hire additional staff. Local businesses partnered with her, offering internships and job training opportunities for the teens. Even some of her harshest critics softened their stance, acknowledging the tangible impact she was having on the community. Through it all, Marcus remained a steadfast supporter. He attended fundraisers, introduced her to influential contacts, and offered advice whenever she needed it. But their relationship wasn't without its challenges. As Amara grew more confident in her abilities, she began to assert her independence, sometimes clashing with Marcus over decisions about the organization's direction. One evening, after a particularly heated discussion about securing funding from a controversial donor, Amara confronted him. "I appreciate everything you've done for me, Marcus," she said, her voice steady but firm. "But I need to make my own choices. This is my vision, my responsibility." Marcus looked at her, his expression unreadable for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "You're right," he said quietly. "This is your journey, Amara. I'll always be here to support you. But I won't interfere unless you ask me to." His willingness to step back meant the world to Amara. It wasn't just about trust. It was about respecting her autonomy, recognizing that she had grown into a leader capable of standing on her own 2 feet. As the years passed, Amara continued to push boundaries, advocating for policy changes and collaborating with other organizations to tackle homelessness on a larger scale. Her reputation as a changemaker grew, earning her invitations to speak at conferences and events around the country. Yet despite her success, she never lost sight of where she came from. Every decision she made was guided by the same principles that had driven her since the beginning: kindness, integrity, and a belief in second chances. Marcus watched her transformation with pride, marveling at the woman she had become. She wasn't just the girl who had returned his wallet all those years ago. She was a force to be reckoned with, a testament to the power of resilience and determination. One evening, as they sat together in his penthouse overlooking the city, Marcus broke the comfortable silence between them. You know, he began, his tone thoughtful. When I first met you, I thought I was helping you. But looking back, I realize you saved me just as much as I saved you. Amara raised an eyebrow. Intrigued. What do you mean? He smiled faintly, his gaze distant. Before you came into my life, I had forgotten what it meant to care about something bigger than myself. I was consumed by work, money, success, all the things I thought mattered. But you reminded me of what truly matters. Humanity. Compassion. Making a difference, no matter how small. Amara felt a lump rise in her throat. She had always known Marcus cared deeply about her, but hearing him express it so openly touched her in ways she couldn't articulate. I couldn't have done any of this without you, she said softly. You gave me a chance when no one else would. That's something I'll never forget. Marcus shook his head, dismissing her gratitude. You earned every bit of it, Amara. Never forget that. Their bond had evolved into something rare and profound, a partnership rooted in mutual respect, trust, and a shared commitment to creating positive change. Together, they had transformed not only each other's lives, but also the lives of countless others. And yet neither of them realized that their story was about to take another unexpected turn, one that would test their relationship in ways neither could have anticipated. In the months that followed, Amara faced a crisis that threatened everything she had built. Funding dried up unexpectedly, forcing her to make difficult decisions about cutting programs and laying off staff. At the same time, rumors began circulating about mismanagement within the organization, damaging its reputation and eroding public trust. For the first time in years, Amara felt overwhelmed, unsure if she had the strength to overcome this latest challenge. When Marcus heard about the situation, he immediately reached out. Whatever you need, he told her, his voice unwavering. We'll figure it out together. And true to his word, he stood by her side, helping her navigate the storm. Through late-night strategy sessions and endless phone calls, they worked tirelessly to rebuild Rising Roots, determined to emerge stronger than ever. By the time the dust settled, Amara realized something important. While setbacks were inevitable, they didn't define her. What mattered was how she responded, with courage, perseverance, and the unwavering support of someone who believed in her unconditionally. Months after the crisis at Rising Roots, Amara finally felt like she was regaining her footing. The organization had weathered the storm, thanks in large part to Marcus's unwavering support. Together, they had rebuilt trust with donors and restructured programs to ensure sustainability. While the road ahead still held challenges, Amara knew she had emerged stronger and more resilient than before. One crisp autumn morning, as golden leaves swirled in the wind outside her office window, Amara received a call from Marcus. His tone was unusually serious, which immediately caught her attention. Can you meet me at my penthouse later today? He asked. There's something I need to discuss with you. Curiosity tinged with a hint of unease bubbled inside her. Over the years, Marcus had become not just a mentor but also a father figure, a source of wisdom and encouragement she relied on deeply. Yet his request sounded formal, almost ominous. Still, she agreed without hesitation. Of course, I'll be there. That evening, Amara arrived at Marcus's penthouse, the familiar skyline glowing softly through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He greeted her warmly, offering her a seat by the fireplace. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The quiet hum of the city below filled the room. Finally, Marcus cleared his throat and began. Amara, he said, his voice steady, yet tinged with emotion. I've been thinking a lot about our journey together, about everything we've accomplished and everything we've overcome. You've grown into an extraordinary woman, someone who inspires others simply by being herself. And while I'm incredibly proud of what you've achieved, I want to make sure you understand how much you mean to me. Amara shifted uncomfortably, unsure where this was heading. She wasn't used to receiving such heartfelt praise, especially from someone like Marcus. Thank you, she murmured, her cheeks flushing slightly. But why are we talking about this now? Marcus leaned forward, his expression softening. Because I have something important to tell you. Something I should have shared long ago. He paused, taking a deep breath. Amara, when I first met you, I thought I was helping a stranger in need. But over time, you became so much more than that. You became family. Her eyes widened in surprise. Family? The word resonated deeply within her, stirring emotions she hadn't fully processed until now. Growing up, she had lost her mother and spent years longing for connection. Marcus had filled that void in ways she hadn't realized until this moment. I know it might sound strange, Marcus continued, but I see you as the daughter I never had. Someone who embodies all the values I hold dear. Kindness, resilience, and a commitment to making the world a better place. That's why I've decided to include you in my will. Not out of obligation, but because you deserve it. Amara froze, her mind struggling to process his words. Your will? She repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, Marcus said firmly. Part of my fortune will go to you. Not because I pity you or feel indebted to you, but because you've earned it. Because you've proven time and again that you're capable of using resources wisely. To uplift others, to create change, to inspire hope. Tears welled up in Amara's eyes as she shook her head vehemently. No, Marcus, I can't accept that. I don't need your money. Everything I've built I've done on my own. With your guidance, yes, but still, it's mine. I won't take anything more from you. Marcus smiled gently, reaching across the table to place a reassuring hand on hers. This isn't charity, Amara. It's recognition. A way of ensuring that you have the means to continue doing the incredible work you're already doing. Think of it as an investment, not in you, but in the future you're building. A long moment, Amara sat silently, grappling with the weight of his words. She had spent years proving to herself and others that she didn't need handouts, that she could succeed through hard work and determination alone. But Marcus's gesture wasn't about charity. It was about trust, about believing in her vision, and empowering her to dream even bigger. Finally, she nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Not just for this, but for everything. For seeing me when no one else did. For giving me a chance when I thought I'd run out of them. Marcus squeezed her hand, his own eyes glistening. You've given me just as much, if not more. You reminded me of who I am, of what truly matters. So consider this, a partnership. We'll use these resources together to help more kids, to tackle bigger issues, to leave a legacy we can both be proud of. In the months that followed, Amara and Marcus worked side by side to expand Rising Roots into a national movement. With Marcus's financial backing and Amara's visionary leadership, they launched new initiatives aimed at addressing systemic issues like affordable housing, education reform, and mental health support for marginalized communities. Their collaboration became a model for how individuals from vastly different backgrounds could come together to drive meaningful change. As their efforts gained momentum, Amara began speaking publicly about her journey, from homelessness to founding a nonprofit, from returning a billionaire's wallet to becoming his heir. Her story captured hearts across the country, inspiring countless others to believe in the power of second chances and the transformative potential of kindness. Through it all, Marcus remained by her side, cheering her on every step of the way. Their bond had transcended mentorship and evolved into something rare and beautiful, a partnership rooted in mutual respect, shared values, and an unshakable belief in the possibility of change. One evening, as they stood together on the rooftop of Marcus's penthouse overlooking the glittering city below, Amara turned to him with a smile. Do you ever think about how different our lives would be if I hadn't found your wallet that day? Marcus chuckled softly, his gaze thoughtful. All the time, he admitted. But then I remind myself that it wasn't just luck, it was destiny. Somehow we were meant to cross paths. And look at what we've accomplished since. Amara nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. Destiny or not, I'm glad it happened, because meeting you changed everything for both of us. They stood there in companionable silence, watching the city lights dance against the night sky. In that moment, they weren't just a billionaire and a former homeless girl. They were two people who had found purpose in each other, who had dared to dream bigger and reach further than either thought possible. And as they looked toward the future, they knew their work was far from over. Together, they would continue fighting for a world where everyone had a fair shot at success. A world where acts of kindness, no matter how small, could spark waves of transformation. Their story was proof that sometimes, the smallest gestures, a returned wallet a second chance, could lead to the most profound changes. Proof that humanity, at its core, was defined not by wealth or status, but by the connections we forged and the lives we touched along the way.